Well, we're headed over for Hope's and Owen's interview on the Kids Automotive panel here at 2024 Mecum Auctions. Some amazing cars are here. Hope just finished the completion of building that 1600, and so we're pretty close to having that to where we could literally throw it in. Basically, you just need spark plugs and some motor oil in it, and I think we're good to go. So I'll show you a little tour as I walk down to where the interviews are going to be happening. Some beautiful Corvettes down here.
Is provide a very bright spotlight on the up-and-coming generation of new enthusiasts to this collector and specialty car hobby that we all enjoy so much. And I believe this is the first year that there's a special invitational for a lot of these owners to have their cars in. And I believe that's going to continue with each passing year, just showcasing what the next generation is interested in, what they're owning, what they're wrenching on. And I think it's exciting to see as it evolves in the years to come. So what we're going to do today is I'm just going to moderate a Q&A with this group of owners and enthusiasts talking about what they are working on, what they're driving, what they're interested in. And I think the most appropriate place to start off is if we could just have each of you state your name, maybe where you're from, and then what vehicle or vehicles are you involved with, driving, racing, wrenching on.
All right, everybody, so I'll go first because I'm the awkward one. So my name is Anthony Stoll. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, and I have a 1978 Chevrolet Malibu that's here at the show. I'm going to pass the microphone down. I don't know what direction. That way? Okay.
I'm Christoph. I have a 1965 Plymouth Barracuda. I'm from Detroit, Michigan.
I'm Hope. I have a 1960 VW Beetle, and I'm from Bell Fountain, Ohio.
I'm Owen, and I have a 1948 Ford F1, and I'm from Bell Fountain, Ohio.
I'm Colton, and I have a 1988 Corvette. I'm from Arkansas.
I'm Ophelia, and this is my sister Ida, and we have a 68 Dodge Charger. We're from Wheaton, Illinois.
I'm Carly Kapler. I'm from Dallas, Pennsylvania, and I have a 1970 AMC Hornet here on display today.
My name is Alex Foth. I am from Oak Ridge, New Jersey, and I have the Aqua Metallic 1940 Chevrolet Street Rod.
My name is Jackson Barrett. I'm from Davie County, North Carolina. Got a 64 C10, 66 Biscayne, and a 91 Camaro.
My name is Caitlin Drozaish, and I have a 2001 half-scale junior dragster, and I'm from Hickory Hills, Illinois.
My name is Jack Ziola. I'm from Kansas City, and I have a 1982 Mini Corvette go-kart.
My name is Gary Thomas. I'm from Youngstown, Ohio, and I have a 1970 Dodge Super B.
So quite a diverse range of interests and model years, and I think if it's the same as yesterday, the newest model year I heard is I think 01 or certainly the 80s, but the majority of them are from that classic era, which I think is so fascinating. Follow-up question is, so now we know who you are and what vehicles you guys have. Where did the interest for classic motoring come from for each of you?
Mainly my dad. I mean, my grandpa too, but My dad has a bunch of 69 Corvettes, and I've just been going to shows with him all my life. I've been around the cars, working on meeting people, and I have a great time.
I basically, like, am the same with him. My dad got me into cars and helped me work on them, and we worked on them together. Then we went to a lot of car shows.
For me, racing has been in my family for a while. So we originally started out at Route 66, and I was just watching junior dragsters run, and I just wanted to do it because my grandpa was driving too.
My dad and my papa got me into cars. I used to ride around in a 67 Chevelle when I was about 3 months old, so that kind of got me into old muscle cars.
My car passion came from my dad. Ever since I was young, he's only told me that the best car in the world is a 1963 Corvette split window. So I was born and raised hearing about a 63 split window.
My love for classic cars came from both my parents. They both had classic cars when they turned 16. My mom had a Mach 1 and my dad had a GTO, and so I knew when I turned 16 I needed to keep the streak going within my family, so that's when I bought my Hornet.
My love for classic cars came from my dad, because when growing up, we always went to car shows and helped him work on his old Dodge truck, so I always grew up in that environment.
Yeah, for sure. I remember my dad, I think I was 12, he kind of like snuck me into the theater to see American Graffiti. You were supposed to be like 16 or 17, and I was 12, and he's like, just look taller, you'll be fine.
Well, my grandpa grew up, I grew up in the garage. I was like a little kid, and he would bring me in the garage while he was working on his 56 Chevy, while it was like in primer, and he would be doing stuff to it. I'm this little kid here, breathing in brake clean fumes and this and that, and but I'm glad. And my uncle was a motorcycle drag racer, like championship winner. So there's that, and he's also had a race car, and my grandpa's had a race car when he was a younger fellow like me, so I'm going to pass it down to Christoph now.
Mine kind of started with my dad and him telling me stories of his street racing days, and the street racing days was my grandpa's 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner. I just kind of fell in love with the old cars that way. I did my own research on old drag racing legends like Arnie Beswick, Paul Rossi, Butch Leal, and of course the Ram Chargers.
My love for cars came from just helping my family on cars. My dad has had a lot of restorations, so I've helped him on a lot of those. And I also just grew up going to car shows, and that's where I saw my first Beetle when I was little.
Yeah, I come from a pretty big car family. My grandpa restored cars for 30 years, so I've just grown up wrenching.
Right, so yeah, my passion for classic Corvettes came from my grandpa. He brought me a t-shirt bag from the Corvette Museum. It had a red Corvette on the front. It said, "Watch out, when I grow up, I'm going to be driving a Corvette." And we restored 2 Corvettes together, and so now I started a business this past summer making reproduction parts for Corvettes so other people can pursue their passion as well.
Very cool. So over the course of the weekend here, starting I think Friday night, I had the chance to interact and talk at length with some of the stories here. I've gotten to know some of these friendly faces. And I will say, I want to call attention to a couple of them. I'm going to start with Owen. But how many, before we get to Owen's story, how many of you have heard of the Hot Rod Power Tour? Okay, a couple, yeah, you guys know the gist of it. Basically, multi-day, you're hanging out with thousands of other car enthusiasts, cruising through the U.S. So I gotta say, I've gone the last couple years, but I've gone in a very different way from my new friend Owen. I've taken a Durango Hellcat. So I will say, but Owen told me his story because I was on Power Tour, and I asked him, I said, tell me about your experience. It was very different from mine, and yet I think he had more fun than I did. I'm a little bit jealous. Owen, tell us about what happened this year on Power Tour.
So I've got the 48 Ford. It had the old flathead V8 in it. I got it going. Was driving it around about 2 weeks before the Power Tour. I think it stuck a valve or something, and so it was, I wasn't going to be able to get it rebuilt in time. So I had to throw a small block Ford in it and put maybe 50 miles or something on this engine before we took off for the Power Tour. About 10 miles from home, the drive shaft dropped out the bottom, and that started the chain of 17 breakdowns that week. And so yeah, all week it was just breakdown one after the next. We had to drop the transmission out. Me, my brother, and cousin dropped it in a hotel parking lot, replaced the throwout bearing. We're on the road the next morning. So yeah, just a very long chain of breakdowns.
But would you do it again if you had the chance?
Most definitely.
Absolutely. So, for those who have not been on Power Tour, it's worth going to. It's kind of run what you brung in terms of the whole goal is to get people out driving, particularly classic cars. And there is within the event, there's a long haul status, right, for people that participate throughout the entire week. And it doesn't matter if you have a numbers matching Copo Camaro or if you have a 6-cylinder Duster. It's really just about getting together and celebrating driving. And I will say, the last couple of years I've gone, I've seen people like Owen who are out there in a hotel parking lot on the side of the road, and they're working through rain or different things, but yet the smile is so big. So I was not surprised when I heard Owen's passion, despite all of the breakdown and challenges, is that's what keeps us coming back to love these old cars. There's a charm to them. There's something about man and machine, and so I love hearing that. Another individual is Hope, his cousin. So these are cousins, and I will say I'm a Volkswagen guy, and I heard her parents helped prompt this story but now I've learned more from Hope about she's a big Volkswagen enthusiast. Tell them how young you were when you got bit by the bug, maybe pun intended, pun not intended, and a little bit about how you saved and how you acquired your dream car.
So I first saw my first VW at a car show when I was 4, and I called it a slug bug, and I told my parents, okay, I want a slug bug when I'm older. And so they told me to start saving for it. And I don't think they really anticipated me actually saving to buy one, but I did. And so since I was 4, I had started saving like all my pennies and birthday money, and I put it on this little Hello Kitty purse. And so when I was 12, I had saved $960. And I think it was on Facebook Marketplace. I saw a Beetle, and it was just a rusty old shell, but I bought it for $960. And since then, I have just been doing odds and ends jobs, saving the money to buy parts, because it can be a little pricey sometimes, but it's been great working with my dad. He's taught me so much about it, and my whole family has helped me just restore it, and it's been a great journey to do that.
So we're going to hear from Carly next, which I'm excited because I will say Carly has a very interesting story that resonates with my own journey. I got into this wild world of classic cars through a vocational track myself. In high school, I was notified by a guidance counselor about the opportunity to attend a vocational technology center. And I started off as an automotive repair technician. I worked in the dealership setting before I moved into journalism and entertainment. And I will say that's how I got my start in my love, was actually turning wrenches. And I think, Carly, your story is similar to that. Share a little bit about how your love for classic cars is leading you into a full-time career.
Sure. So I got the love for working with my hands while working on the engine of my 1970 Hornet, and just kind of getting it restored and getting it show ready. But it really inspired me to work with my hands more often. So I started taking any tech class my high school had to offer. So I took like a variety of woods classes, a variety of metals classes, and electronics class my junior and senior year of high school. And I realized that with the love of working with my hands and the love of the trades, and also the help of my shop teachers who I really looked up to at the time, I really wanted to go into his profession, into teaching future generations about the trades and kind of getting my voice out there for them to motivate them to get their hands dirty, and that you don't always have to go to college in order to get a good career. So that's what I've been doing. Technology and engineering education is technically what it's called. And I'm in my student teaching right now. So I'm in a digital media class, an interactive media class, which is basically animation. Tech ed can go a lot of different ways. And I'm also in a woods and metals class, and they are the class itself is called Design and Build, so it's probably very different than the tech classes any of you guys have had in the previous years, but they sit down and they design the cutting board that they would like to make, and then have to use those problem-solving skills to kind of work through them and figure out what kind of machines they'll have to do for each part of the actual cutting board themselves. So they are designing it and then building it. So it's more, tech ed has become more and more of just shop. It's a lot of problem solving and stuff like that, which is really cool and a great way to get kids tinkering around in our shops and hopefully get them motivated to go into something like that in the future.
So Carly, if looking out in the next couple of years, where would you like to see yourself? What kind of aspect would you like to be teaching? A particular discipline, welding, painting, mechanics, general stuff? What's kind of your dream classroom scenario?
I really like, I'm like a photography gal, so I do like that aspect of tech ed. So I like the whole graphics part of it, but I also really, enjoy the classics, the woods and metals. I took a welding class in high school and it totally changed my view on working with metal because I've never done that before previously, and it kind of motivated me to. I actually built like my own like chopper, like bicycle when I was younger and stuff because of the welding experience I had. So it kind of opened up a new world. So I wouldn't be opposed to teaching either one of those two. Those would be really cool to. Like those ones are more, you get your hands dirty rather than just taking a few pictures. But it does not matter where I end up really. I think any of those fields are really cool and really beneficial to the future of trades and just beneficial to the future in general. So.
Next, let's talk with Christoph, because I was struck during the presentation yesterday for those that were here, and then he and I talked a little bit. I was struck with his passion, not just for classic cars, but for the research and the culture that goes with it. I will say, over the last several years, I've been a journalist myself, and I've really gotten big by that research bug to not just know about the classic cars, but know their stories, know how they fit into the time and place. And I think all of these panels are growing that love, but Christoph in particular, you are a diehard Mopar guy, and your classic car that you own, it's not just you want a classic car, you're actually building it kind of related to what was going on during that scene of racing. Can you fill in the audience kind of your vision for your car and what you've researched and kind of your vision for it?
So I did a lot of research on the 1968 Superstock Barracudas that Chrysler made, and I didn't like that. I wasn't a huge fan of the second-gen Barracudas. I was more a fan of the big rear window first-gen Barracudas. So I decided I was going to take the 68 Superstock idea and apply it to my 65 Barracuda. I have a 383 Mopar engine. I'm using 1990s Mopar Stage 6 heads and an original cross-ram intake manifold of 1963. And I'm putting them all together. I have C-body HP manifolds, and it's going to make it all fit in my 65 Barracuda. They had aluminum front ends in 1965 for the Superstock cars, but in 1968 they used fiberglass, and they don't make aluminum front ends for my car, so I went with the fiberglass idea, and that's kind of really what I'm doing.
Man's got a plan. I think he knows Mopar history better than some other folks here, which I love. And when do you see all that coming together? Is that going to be here next year in a final state?
Hopefully I'm doing what I can, working odd jobs, just trying to save up as much money as I can and as fast as I can. If I don't get the motor in the car next year, I'm hoping to have the motor at least somewhat done on a stand next to the car.
Very cool. All right, we're going to talk with Jackson only because we went through the cars that people are connected with yesterday, and you kept rattling off stuff that you either have or are working on. I lost track of it. Remind us how many different projects you're engaged in. And I just learned this morning that you also have a car you're drag racing and your mom was in the right seat. Fill us all in on what you've been up to this year.
So overall, I have 3 personal projects that I work on. C10 Chevy truck, 66 Biscayne, and a 91 Camaro Z28. I was entered at my local drag strip in a teen class. We called ourselves the Farm Teens because it was Farmington Dragway. But you were 13 to 16. We all had a parent co-driver. My mom right there, she rode with me the whole time. But it started out as a 305 car with a TBI. And me and my dad, we did it for half a season together. And one night we put my mom in there, and that car went from a 1080 to a 1029 by removing him and putting her in there. So he lost his passenger position. She went in there. When I was 14, we LS swapped it. Got a junkyard 5.3 for $500 on Facebook Marketplace, and slammed that in with a rebuilt 4L60, and we didn't expect anything out of it. We didn't know it was going to run. It ended up clicking off a 926 very first pass, which is we cut off at 9, and this year we ended up putting 373s in it, and we ran a 9.0 consistent. We did lose a few races for going 8.97 in the 8th mile, but overall I think it's a pretty fun car. That's just what I love to do. I love drag racing, and we try to put things together that other people would just kind of, look at and say, oh well, whatever.
So Jackson, you mentioned that there's a love here. I think that's the common theme, right, that we're picking up, is that all these young individuals clearly have a love for this. It's very organic, it's authentic. And again, I think the majority of the vehicles in these young folks' possession are from the 60s and 70s, and even the ones that are later than that are still 25 years old. So they are classic. And the question I want to ask you all is, what is it about that era, again, or eras bygone, that is drawing you towards them? I mean, again, a lot of these cars are from the 60s and 70s, but even the ones from the 80s and the 2000s, they're clearly different from what we're seeing on the roads today. So what is drawing you towards that era of transportation and motoring?
I like the styling. I think cars from the 60s and 70s just have better lines than cars today. Yeah, I like the sound of them, the feel of them, just being behind the wheel and working on them. They're easier to work on, more enjoyable, and actually have fun with older cars. Just overall, I like everything about them more.
I just like most of when you drive it, it has sound to it. It's not like the electric cars that just, rev up. You can't rev electric cars again. And, yeah.
I just like the look of them and how they sound, because some of them are way faster than they are today.
I like the look of them, and I like the classic ride quality. A lot of people don't take that into consideration, how manual steering and drum brakes in the front. You got to really think about it whenever you're driving. You can't just be mindless like today's drivers are.
Well, I'm unfortunately the oddball out with a car not from the 60s or 70s. I have a car from 1940, and I just think that fat fender era is just, you can't forget about it. And I unfortunately think the people who own those cars in that hot rod era are passing away, and to keep that era of hot rods continuing with the youth generation.
I'm a little biased, so my Hornet was a grocery getter and a family car in the 70s and 80s, and they were typically throwaway cars, but there was something so much about the character of an everyday car from the 60s, 70s, and 80s that today's cars don't have. I feel like they all look very similar. We have a lot of SUVs, and it's just, nothing just beats getting into an everyday car from the 70s and 80s and being like, wow, this is cool, even if it was an everyday car.
Yeah, I agree with Carly on that. I feel like all these classic cars, they have much more character, and I feel like everything's a bit more thought out. And this might sound weird, but also the smell of the exhaust and the leather is just much more personal, I feel like.
Well, I could go on all day about it. I'm not going to go on all day about it. But I love the way they look, first off, the way they drive. They just drive differently. They were just a completely different car. If you take a new car and an old car and put them next to each other, they're completely different. I own 4 classic cars, and all of them are different in their own special way. So everything is different, it's cool, and it's unique.
I'm going to agree with what Tony said. Everything is very unique, and just the styling of the time, the body lines, with my car specifically, there's a body line that comes off the rear bumper into the rear quarter panel. The rear window was once the largest piece of glass ever made for any automobile. I've driven newer cars, I've driven older cars. With my driver's training, I drove a newer Ford Focus. And then with my car that I drove later that same day, it was just so much better. Each car's got its own little thing about it. I agree with what Ida said with the smell of the old cars. They just can't be beat.
I also really like the way they look, and also the colors are so much brighter than any other ones. New cars are the same colors, But like, if you ever like see my car, like it definitely like stands out. Like all these guys' cars, like the colors are like much more unique and stuff like that.
I like the character on them, and there's just nothing like driving a fire-breathing V8, 5-speed manual. You just can't beat it.
I definitely love the sleekness of the 80s style Corvette design, and I really like the engineering history behind the Corvette Challenge race cars and stuff like that. So that's what draws me to them.
So let's talk dream cars. 'Cause I asked this question yesterday, and I think I'm still taken aback by the answers I got. So for the guests up here, so I know you guys have, in some cases, several classic vehicles that you guys are heavily involved with. But let's say that if money was no object, which car or truck would you guys go out and add to your collection? I'll throw that out to the group.
Just like I said yesterday, either a 69 Hemi Super B or a 69 A12B. But if it's an A12, the H-wheel's gotta go.
A 69 Mustang or a 67 Nova.
I would have a teal and white 1957 Chevrolet.
Either a 71 Nova with a single turbo LS making a small tire street car, or a 71 El Camino Super Ford.
So I said yesterday, I switch my answer every day. And this morning I walked in the building and I saw that Tyrol Blue 67 GTO. So wouldn't mind driving home in that today.
Like I said yesterday, I like to stack my AMC collection. So like Gremlins, Pacers, Rebels, Ramblers. I love an Eagle, so any of those I would take easily.
Probably for me would be a 1983 Dodge truck because of my dad's old car.
I have one, thank you. 1975 Pontiac Firebird. Trans Ams are my jam for sure.
2015 Toyota. I'm joking. Said no one ever. No, for real, I own my dream car. It's a 78 Chevy Malibu, but if I had to choose something to get, it'd be a 64 Dodge. Like that red one right there. Look at that thing. What a gorgeous car. I would do some things to own that car. So, yeah, beautiful car. I hope I win the lottery so I can buy it.
I'm a Tony on this one. I already have my dream car, but if I could get another one, it would be any Dodge Ram from 1978 to 1993, the first gens, or a 1962 Max Wedge Dodge Dart.
I also own my dream car, but if I could have another one, it'd probably be a 69 Chevelle because my family used to own one and I have a lot of memories in that.
Probably be a 67 Mustang GT500 convertible.
I think most of us can agree that our dream car is sitting out there on the showroom floor, and I heard a lot of you say, we all want just one more, so if I could have just one more, it would probably be a 2003 Z06 Corvette in blue.
Well, I will say the good news is I didn't see any adult, when the Dodge was pointed out, no adult got up and ran over there quickly to protect it, so the owner must not be in the crowd, but I don't know if they heard that it's a hot piece. Now, we talk a lot in the community about or the hobby rather, about the sense of community, right? Is that I've heard it a million times before, the cars, or it brings together, from there it's kind of friendships, the people, right? That keeps us coming back. Who was the one that shared yesterday about their friend in Alaska? Was that, yeah, can you talk a little bit about the relationships you've made along the way, this journey?
Yeah, so pretty much, I'm gonna give the story on how I met my friend in Alaska. One day he friend requested me on Facebook, name is Lyle, and I didn't know who he was, but he friend requested me and I accepted it, because I'm like, oh, he looks cool, he's got junior dragster, he lives in Alaska, and long story short, he's like, hey, we start talking about old school drag racing and nostalgia stuff, day two stuff, and his dad is a 64 Dodge Polara, actually two of them, one of them being a factory lightweight super stock car, but it was turned into a tube chassis drag car at one point. And he also has one with a fiberglass front end that he drag races, and it's pretty cool that you meet people all over the world. I have a friend in Australia that I know, and he's into the Holdens. and the Utes and all that. And I'm into the Holdens and the Utes, and my grandfather, he's buying a Holden 2015 SSV Ute. If you don't know what that is, it's a modern El Camino made by Chevrolet with an LS engine, and it's pretty cool. So I've made tons of friends, but then again, as people have said yesterday, it's hard to have friends into this hobby when you're at this age. It's just a rarity. It's not common, and it's hard to come by. So I've been privileged to make a lot of friends and meet all these wonderful people here on stage with me here.
Does anyone else on the stage have stories about friends that they've made, whether close or far, through the love of cars?
Most every friend that I've ever made through the hobby of cars has been like an older guy, in their 40s and above. I mean, you all laugh, but you all know, like, dads, the junior dragsters, one of my friends, he's got a 89 Mustang, and me and him, I've helped him work on it sometimes, and, helped him work on his daughter's junior dragster at the drag strip. But I think probably the funniest story, I didn't make a lot of friends from this story, but one day I took a 66 Biscayne to school. I had no exhaust on it. It was an open header big block with a about 700 lift cam. And my friend, he's like, well, take me for a ride in it. I said, okay, jump in. He gets in me, gets in with me. I parked it behind the shop. There's a field next to our shop. And that particular day, our high school marching band and dance team had decided that it'd be a great idea to go outside and practice. Let's just say that the open header big block caused an end to that practice very, very quickly. Fired that thing up, about 5 kids jumped, dropped their instruments. The dance team stopped mid-routine, and they all just kind of turned. And my friend, whose sister was on the dance team, he looked at me and said, this will be funny. He hangs out the side of my Biscayne, and he just looks at me and says, rip it. I lay on that thing, got the tires slightly spinning in front of a few teachers, in front of the entire dance team, made them all stop, question my sanity, and asked them later, what'd you guys think? They said it was loud, it was ugly, and we all knew it was you.
Most of the friends that I've made through racing is at the racetrack, with our team from Great Lakes Dragway, and all of us just will go out and hang out just some random time. I think some people are coming today, and they're and our team finals, everybody was just having fun and playing around.
Anybody else? Friends or stories of friends?
So I'll proudly say a year ago I joined a car club in New Jersey, and well, the average age of the car club is probably 85 years old. And I mean, every day one of them passes away, and it's really uncomfortable. But somehow I've turned my best friends into 85-year-olds who, when I show up, I feel like I'm the highlight of their day. But it always makes things interesting because you never know what you're going to hear.
So I've made a ton of really good friends along the way, old and young. Like people up here, I've been friends with Tony for a couple of years, Gary Thomas. All these people up here are great. Back home in Detroit, at my high school, there's an auto shop program for high school kids only, the super smart ones. And I joined that when I was in 7th grade. And I was really welcomed in because I knew what I was doing, and it's made a lot of really good friends that way. Racetracks all across the country when I was helping AJ Burrs with his Ram Chargers Factory Stock Showdown Drag Pack Challenger. Made a ton of really good friends that work on other race teams. It's just a really great hobby. It brings all these really cool people together. Remember one time I talked with an 87-year-old man who was working on a 57 Chevy Bel Air at an auto shop 5 minutes from my house. I had a 3-hour conversation with him. It just brings everybody together, and there's nothing better than that.
Well, I think that we all came here from the cars, but we definitely want to stay for the people. And I think within our group here, we have no connection with each other really, but I think that we're going to exchange our contact information and definitely probably become pretty good friends. So this has been a great event.
Maybe I'll learn a little bit about Corvettes from this guy. He's like the Corvette genius.
Well, I think that's a great way to end our conversation here. At this point, any questions from the floor for our young guest? Yes, sir.
So, Anthony is my grandson. Anthony, tell him where you work and what you do.
All right, so my grandfather requests that I tell them where I work and what I do. So my name is Anthony Stoll. I'm sure you've heard of me. I'm actually known by Tony Jenkins. I've been known by that alias because I used to do interviews at the drag strip for the local racers, and that's kind of what I do. But this year, an older guy named Earl hired me at a classic car dealership called MGM Classic Cars in Addison, Illinois, and I've been working there since January at a classic car dealership, driving every car. I do inspections there, photo shoots, and I even sell them sometimes. So if you do need a classic car, contact me. You can call me at 773-680-7637. I'm serious. We have financing 180 months. Listen, it's worth it. Come check cars out. 250 cars in the warehouse. We're open 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. So, yeah. But in all seriousness, I'm a photographer as well. I got my own car here. It's a project car. It's a 78 Malibu. We almost didn't make the show. We put the engine in like a week. I blew up the engine bringing it to work for the paintless dent removal guy last week, and the engine locked up. Don't know what's wrong with it yet. Didn't have time to pull it apart, but we put a new engine in it, 385 small block Chevy, and it's a nice street strip combo transmission shop that is a really good friend of mine that I used to work at. It was my first job. He built me the transmission kind of as a gift for working for him. So yeah, pretty much all I do is sell cars and photograph them and do interviews and photography. So that's me. That's my introduction.
Yes, sir. So he asked for Caitlin, what are her future plans for racing?
I probably plan to go into pro stock like my grandpa does, or probably do a nostalgia pro stock.
Yes, sir.
I'd love to hear some stories of the sketchiest parts of your car. Like, what's the most unrefined part of your car?
So he asked to hear stories of the sketchiest part of their cars.
Okay, so sketchy part of my car is there is a couple football-sized holes in my frame, and my entire underside of my floor is coated in fiberglass. If you do one more burnout, the rear end's gonna fall off the car. It's an all-in-all sketchy car, but that's the fun of it.
My car, my Malibu that's here is actually surprisingly pretty mechanically sound, probably because my grandpa did a lot of work on it, which he's kind of a perfectionist, and he's trying to teach me to be that way. I'm not a perfectionist, sadly, yet. But my 70 Impala, that car, the exhaust was falling off when I first bought it. We drove it all the way from Wisconsin. And it had four-wheel drum brakes. I had crashed a car into a fire hydrant because I drove it. I didn't even have my license for 24 hours. I crashed a car into a fire hydrant because the drum brakes locked up in the rain. So that was pretty sketchy. And then I think that's about it for the sketchy parts. Other than that, pretty good.
My 66 Biscayne is also a four-wheel drum car, but see, with Tony's car, you had a dual pop master cylinder. No, I have a single pop master cylinder from 1966. Oh, and the guy who did it, he only rebuilt the fronts, didn't rebuild the backs. It rides around on original springs and shocks from 1966. You can feel every bump and crack. The transmission only sometimes shifts, and my personal favorite, it has manual steering, but the caster is wrong on one wheel, so if you press the brakes too hard, you will immediately pull right and try to do like a Bo Duke 180 in the middle of the road.
On our 68 Charger, the rear shock mounts are off a tractor.
Some more stuff with my car. My drive shaft kind of bounces off my floor, so does my exhaust. There's a rubber boot on my drive shaft that connects the tailpipe of the trans to the actual shaft itself, and it's all contorted and twisted. Currently it sounds like a straight pipe Honda because I took the muffler off. There's a lot. I have pictures if anyone wants to see those, come see me. But
Well, my car was built in the 90s by my grandfather, and you can imagine 1990, the things they used to do to a hot rod to make them work. To start underneath the dash, there's an electric heater fan that if we turn it on, it'll probably explode. But we haven't turned that on in a couple of years, so you're not gonna tie that. The gas gauge, back when it was built, was completely reversed, so you could imagine empty is full and full is empty. You never know how much gas you really have. When you get in it, you smell everything from exhaust fumes to mice. You never really know what you're gonna get that day. What else? Sometimes your taillights, they'll go in and out every once in a while. You never know if you have 4 working headlights, taillights, you never know. The headlights, you can't really see maybe 10 feet in front of you. They're old headlights. I think that's pretty much it, but every day is a new experience when you get in that car.
All the steering components in the front end of my truck are all original from 48, so as you can imagine, driving 1,500 miles, you're doing that with the steering wheel just to stay straight. So that's pretty interesting going through like a big city like Cincinnati at rush hour. And that coupled with the Flytech fuel injection system. Like I said, I put maybe 50 miles on this engine, so the system was not tuned at all, and I had no idea what I was doing with it. So it would just randomly decide to lean out on us, and it'd just be like choking in the middle of 4 lanes of traffic. So it's kind of sketchy sometimes, but you never know when.
I would say that there's nothing super sketchy about my car, but I always feel safe in it. I'll start with that. But I do have drum brakes. Vacuum wipers from the 70s, interesting choice. So that's always a fun thing when it rains, you know, you lay on the gas and they go in torrential downpour and there's no movement in them, which is really awesome. And I guess in the 70s, you didn't care about like safety when it comes to like the right hand side mirror. We don't have one on my car. So I guess that wasn't a big issue for back then as well, but that's about, there's nothing super sketchy, but I guess those were just some of the design choices that they thought were great for 1970.
My gas gauge doesn't work at all. My speedometer, when you're at low speeds, it bounces up and down. Again, with like the smells of the inside of the car, you smell everything. If you give the car full throttle, you lay a cloud of black smoke across a 4-lane highway. Like, you name it, and something's wrong with it. There's a lot. I could go on all day, but I'm past my time.
I forgot to mention when I first fired up my Malibu that there was a cloud of brown smoke, and I actually am going to probably get that on social media and see if I can get that shared around. I've never seen that. It was like brownish smoke. It smelled weird. I can't even describe how it smelled. The gas gauge doesn't work on any of my vehicles. They float. One of them's kind of like, when it's at full, it can be at empty. So it's kind of a game. I have like bad luck with left headlights on the left side. I don't know why. Like every car I own, the headlights on the left side just don't work. So yeah.
Just a couple of quirks, I think is the theme, but that's good. That's what makes these old cars fun, right? All right, any other questions? That was a good one. Thanks, sir. Oh, that's all right. Well, let's give a round of applause for our guests up here. And I'll just make 2 final announcements. One, if you haven't had a chance, head up to the other hall. A lot of these vehicles that were described are on display. I know a lot of them, I think, also picked up some notable awards this weekend. So congrats to the owners. So again, take a look at the cars. Then also at 3:30 today at the start of the show awards, there's some award attached to this. I don't know more details than that. Bob didn't tell me more than that, but there is an award connected to this next year.
That's I believe the Future Fabricator Award.
I believe so.
So yeah, that's what's your guys are gonna see.
Yeah. So all right. Well, thank you all for coming. Enjoy the rest of your day.
She can finally breathe again.